guys, welcome to my channel. I'm Abella Bryn Caress, and you may know me as the Minimalist Witch, and this is episode 1. So just so you know how this is going to work, you're going to be hanging out with me in my bedroom. So expect like nature sounds via Alexa, some mason jars filled with water, and periodically a 3-year-old running in and interrupting our video. But the way this is sort of designed is you can see my videos on TikTok where I'm limited to 3 minutes, and then I'll expand on them here on YouTube. And then I'm going to simplify everything on Instagram. So just stay tuned for Instagram as I slowly transition across social medias. But this is more of an opportunity to learn from me and give me a chance to make coaching more accessible. I will sum up a week's worth of TikTok videos on the YouTube channel. So this week we're talking about meditation and we're talking about imagination. And I know you've heard me say this a bunch of times, but you are imagining things. You know, you're going to hear people say things like, how do you know the difference? How do you know when you are imagining an entity around you or actually experiencing something with a divine being? And the answer is, it's a little bit of both, and it takes time to be able to discern the difference. And trust. It takes a lot of time and takes a lot of trust within yourself and within your practice, and that obviously means alleviating a lot of self-doubt. I shared a story on TikTok where the first time I ever did a mediumship session, I had this image of this woman come through, and I want to expand on this a little bit because I was in the middle of the session. I was definitely connected. I could feel that I wasn't alone, and when this woman appeared, I saw her reach into her chest, grab her heart, and like yank it out. And for those who are just meeting me, I write television and film, and so I tend to write dark fantasy with a focus on the occult. So as I'm in this tarot session, I'm thinking there's no freaking way that this is actually happening. This is just something in my mind. And when she was showing me this heart, and I kept hearing in my head, in my own voice, Clarice, 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 Clarice. And then I heard it in a different voice. And then I was like, that's a bit much, but I'm a huge Hannibal Lecter fan, so it was like, definitely not it. It wasn't until later on when I apologized, I was like, I'm so sorry that, you know, I wasn't able to actually communicate with any of your loved ones past, that my client was like, yeah, it's unfortunate because my grandmother passed away a year ago, and her, you know, she passed away from heart failure, and it was really tragic. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's such a bummer. But like, what was her name? Obviously I was more sensitive than that, but then she told me her name was Clarice. And I knew that it was my responsibility in that moment to, in my practice, to eventually get to a place where I could discern what was a intuition download or a download from spirit, and what was just my really aggressive imagination. And that takes practice, and it takes, honestly, being willing to fail, being willing to mess up, and being willing to say, like, not every message is going to be right, and know that, but some messages are right, and they're worth the risk. And toddler, and you're worth the risk. You know, and this sort of goes along the lines of when we're talking about meditation in general and how people have a massive disconnect with it. And it's mostly because they have expectations of what it's supposed to look like. You know, because you have the flip side to this coin of people who attempt to meditate and then they're unable to have or receive anything. They just feel like they're seeing darkness. And it's typically because they have this expectation of this like really vivid experience that's going to just happen immediately. And yet when they close their eyes, they're seeing darkness. Well, facts are, when you close your eyes, it is dark. It's because you're not using your physical eyes to have this experience. You're using what you call your mind's eye, right? But a even bigger problem is that we try to separate the two. We try to separate the spiritual body to our mind's eye, that they are two separate entities when they are two in the same. We are still using our mind. We are still perceiving information through our mind, through our senses. The same way you know when a stove is hot and your body says, hey, don't touch that stove, it is hot, is the exact same way that you are going to receive messages that are from a spiritual perspective. The sixth sense. So yeah, your body is going to receive this message. And then your brain has to translate the message. And this gives me a chance to expand on this, where practitioners need to be careful about how we deliver these messages to our clients, how we deliver these messages to ourselves. When you have this horrible experience, you'll hear about people saying, I had this horrible experience with this demon, or I had this horrible experience with this spirit where I was, in meditation and they tried to hurt me, or this happened or that happened. And I'm like, we need to pay attention to the messages that we're getting, absolutely. But we also need to pay attention to how our brain is going to translate that message. I know that my brain translates messages in a very aggressive and unnerving way. And that is something that I would never, ever tell my clients. It's up to me to use discernment of how to translate this message that's going to be beneficial to someone and not scare someone. I learned early on that spirits and other entities can't physically attach themselves to you, that it is a concentration of trauma in a specific area of the body, and that additional energies that are external to you can have an influence on that particular area. So, for instance, I had a client who went to a Reiki practitioner who told her that she had a spirit connected to her third eye. Well, it was creating a blockage. And I spoke with that Reiki practitioner, who was also a client of mine, and we actually came to a place of understanding where she explained to me that it very much looked like there was another entity connected. And I then explained, well, that makes sense, because imagine if there was. Think of the severity in which you would need to apply Reiki in order to clear that blockage. How severe was that to you when you saw that? And she was like, it became priority. And I'm like, absolutely. So spirit sometimes shows us images in order for us to address the priority of the situation or the severity of the situation. But it's not exactly what we're seeing. So our perceived reality is not an underlying reality. And what I always say when it comes to this is like, think about a dead animal on the street. And actually it's Joseph Goldstein, who is a Buddhist, that talked about this, just to give credit where credit is due. But if you think about a dead animal on the side of the street, now if I see roadkill, I'm going to be like, well, that's disgusting and we need to dispose of it. But a vulture who sees roadkill is going to say, well, that is lunch and I'm here for it. And it is very different perception of our own personal reality with two very different intending consequences. Mine is to throw it out and the vulture's is to eat it. So whose reality is more real? Neither. There is no underlying reality across the board. There is only individual experiences and individual realities. And the sooner we recognize this, the sooner we can stop experiencing fear on such an intense level, and start experiencing our gifts exactly how we are meant to experience them on our own personal level. Because frankly, that's why we have them. because my gifts are not yours and yours are not mine, and they'll never be. And so continually hoping and wishing that yours will eventually look like someone else's, you'll just be continuously disappointed. So this week, I think really pay attention to how you receive these personal messages. Start to translate them in a way that makes sense for you. And yeah, next week when we come together, let's see if that made a difference. This is just me and you, and I just really appreciate you for subscribing to my channel, spending time with me. Drink some water today. I'm gonna hold myself accountable for drinking more water, and I'm gonna hold you accountable for it as well. And let's come together next week and see if we can, I don't know, make magic happen. Okay, have a good one.